think they're actually going to get this soap? Okay. Hi, I'm Andy Solage with E-Link Solutions. Welcome to Print Fight Club. We have front row seats for this theater of mass destruction, and E-Links is proud to be the sponsor. No matter where you land in this debate, whether you are an in-house print buyer, a print broker, or a service provider, E-Links provides software purpose-built to help you procure and manage custom print more effectively. Your people, your process, your vendors, all things print. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first installment of Print Fight Club, sponsored by our friends at E-Link Solutions. Yay, E-Link Solutions. Oh my God, I don't know how to do this. So today's topic is, will print management services kill in-house and agency print buyers or save them? If you're going to tweet, please use hashtag PrintFightClub. And before we start, I just wanted to say a couple of thank yous. First one, again, going out to E-Link Solutions. I have a lot of crazy ideas, and this is one of them. And it's very hard to get companies, especially on board sometimes. But I have to say, in this case, E-Link Solutions was really cool. They were in from go. They wanted to do anything they could to help support this event, this initiative. They thought it was important to start opening up conversations that aren't so one-sided, and they wanted to be part of that because that's how you learn and grow with each other. You communicate. So that's part of what we're doing here. So big thanks to E-Link Solutions, and this is how you can get in touch with them. I'm Deborah Korn, by the way, from Print Media Center. Sorry about that. I also want to thank Explore International. They generously allow me to use their webinar platform for all of my webinars and discussions and fight clubs. And they're having a conference coming up April 14th through 16th in Orlando, the Exploration Conference. If you're into direct mail, variable data printing, PDF situations, high volume printing, document management, transaction, customer communications. This is the organization. You should check them out. These are some of the smartest people on the planet. I'm not kidding. They invented half these technologies. And I was actually invited to do a workshop, a pre-conference workshop, which I'm presenting with Trish Wachowski from Full Factory and Joanne Gore, who's the marketing manager for Avanti. And we're presenting that pre-conference on April 13th at the Explore Conference. You can check out the website, connect with them on social media for all the information that you need there. So let's go right into the panelists. As I said, I'm Deborah Korn from Print Media Center. I'll be representing agency and marketing print buyers. Matthew Parker, who's below me on my video, will be representing procurement specialists. Hi, Matthew.
Hi, Deborah.
And Jim Fennell is representing print management services.
Hello there.
He has agreed to come into the Print Fight Club. So let's just briefly go over a little background. So Matthew, who are you and what do you do?
Thanks, Deborah. I'm Matthew Parker. I used to work full-time as a print buyer. Now I'm poacher turned gamekeeper, and I'm the champion of print at Profitable Print Relationships. And I work with printing companies and print management companies, working with their sales and marketing teams, telling them what it's like to be a buyer, how to connect with buyers better, and how to create more profitable relationships. I'm also a director at Print and Procurement, where we provide strategic purchasing consultancy in the print area to companies.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Jim?
I'm Jim Fennell. I'm the managing partner of Impressions DP. We are a small print management firm located in White Plains, New York. I've been in the printing business since I was 15 years old, and I've worked in most every particular job, including production, sales, eventually moving over into the agency business. Our print management shop became a creative shop, which then became an advertising shop. So I've been on both sides of the desk. I've sold printing, and I bought lots of printing. After leaving the agency 18 months ago, I identified an opportunity, and I left to start this business.
Cool. If any, well, I guess I'll do me then. I'm Deborah Korn. I'm the intergalactic ambassador to the Printiverse at Print Media Center. I also run the Print Production Professionals group on LinkedIn, the #1 LinkedIn group for print. Yes, Paul Gardner, you're #2. I spent my entire career in advertising agencies, starting as a entry-level traffic person all the way up to the director of production. Seen it all, done it all. I've actually worked with print management services before as an agency buyer, and I think this topic will be of interest to the community, and I'm really happy, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me, and I really appreciate it. So let's get right to it. I am Jack's polarizing premise. Will print management services kill in-house and agency print buyers or save them? Something interesting happened yesterday when I was talking to Matthew Parker about some questions, and England, or is it all of UK or just England, Matthew?
No, all of UK.
All.
And I think a large part of the world as well, from what you're going to say.
Okay. I was referring to this as managed print services, but this means a completely different thing to mostly everybody out of America. So I've changed it to print management services, and now we're going to discuss a little what that means. I will pretty much be participating, chiming in, but more so I want to make sure that everybody at home knows that we want this to be interactive. So as we're going along, if you have comments, statements, questions, whatever it might be, just type them in the chat, the question area, and I will interject them as necessary. So why don't we just start off with Jim, since you're in this space right now, how do you define print management services?
Well, first of all, I think the term print management services is I don't like it. I think that it's misleading. To Matthew's point, in the UK they have a different meaning for it than we do here. But in the absence of a good definition of print management services, I'd like to propose one, and that would be that a print management service is an intermediary firm that helps clients to optimize their spend on print and optimize their marketing supply chain. Now, what the difference that Matthew brought up earlier that we spoke of was internal versus external. The internal view of print management services is managing your printers, managing your color copiers, toner, purchasing, et cetera, et cetera. Print management services here, our definition is entirely different. We're talking about firms that come in to manage the external purchase of printing, to purchase throughout the marketing supply chain, not necessarily only printing, but also premiums, in some cases creative services, all the way through the supply chain out to logistics and distribution out into the field.
So you're expanding this definition for...
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I think we need to, because we have subsets within print management services.
Well, how is printing a logo on a mug different than a print service? Why is that different? When you say premium, is that what you mean by premiums, or maybe?
Yeah, no, it's managing the process.
Okay.
That's what I mean, is managing the process of purchasing. Purchasing print, purchasing premiums, purchasing different items is a very complex item. As we know, we've all done it. It's probably one of the most difficult things to procure. But the knowledge that could be used in purchasing print is also applied over to purchasing other items as well, including premiums. What I'd like to propose is that we call this marketing services management rather than print management, because I see you're covering your eyes, but because it covers a wider expanse than just printing alone. And if you look at the large BPOs, they are expanding their reach into other areas of procurement as well. So I think our definitions have been very lacking so far. print management services encompasses everything.
In your place. In your place.
What we're talking about right now, really, I think, is more marketing services management.
Okay, Matthew, why don't you address that?
Okay, so I'm broadly in agreement with Jim. I certainly think that print management, as I call it over here, or print services management, is all about creating the whole purchasing process within outsourcing that from a company. You can add the marketing to it. I think in the pure print management area over in the UK, that's slightly less common, but I do know that companies are looking to expand their remit. What I'd like to add in there is what I think print management should be doing, and sometimes does and sometimes doesn't, which is actually helping the client to get the most out of print, to use print in the right way and to make suggestions. So what I see with some print management is that they're effectively buying what the client asks them to do, whereas the good print management companies are taking that a step further and going, what's the purpose of this? What are you trying to achieve? And how can we help you achieve that? Is there a better way to do that?
Okay, I agree with what you're both saying, but you guys are expanding what print management services or print management services are. You're adding value to it by adding marketing, and Angela Bond just chimed in and said, you know, that would also include PR, media, data, list procurement, DAMs, customer service, relationship management, street marketing. Why can't it just be print? And I happen to agree with her. And throwing this back out at both of you who are sort of in this space or been in this space, I'm sorry, but it just seems to me like you're putting lipstick on a pig. You're a print broker, right? Are you a print broker, Jim?
No.
You're not a print broker.
I say print brokers. Print brokers work in the same space. We had a debate over this a couple of months ago online. I know. That's why we're having
a debate right now.
Yeah, you know, and you got me thinking. You got me thinking on the subject. And I think the print brokering and print management are different. With the larger umbrella definition of print management, though, print brokering is one form of print management. Marketing services management, the companies that we're talking about now that are coming in and working enterprise-level deals, are going in on a different model. They're going in basically reviewing the entire process of purchasing throughout the organization, making recommendations, changing procedures, adding technology, overlaying technology over the top, and in a full enterprise level solution, taking over the entire process. Now, that's one aspect of it. That certainly is not print brokering. Print brokering is also more transactional. Print brokers typically work on a project-to-project basis, and they're very opaque as well. Print brokers will go out to a supplier, they'll purchase the print, they'll mark it up, they'll sell it to the client. Mm-hmm. No knowledge of the fundamental numbers. In a managed print solution, marketing, services, management, etc., and those are contractual relationships that are established between the company, the firm, and the enterprise. And they're typically a lot more transparent. The compensation model can be based upon cost plus, but also compensation models include fee-for-service, retainer-based, also gain sharing as well, which I'm not overly crazy about, but it's a very commonly used compensation model, particularly in new engagements in a white space opportunity that hasn't been optimized before. Okay. So that's the difference I see.
Okay, cool. Before we move on to the next question, Matthew, I saw your little eyebrows go up. Did you want to make a comment?
I'd love to comment. I think there's three things I'd like to mention here, which is I think that Jim's got a great definition between the difference between print brokering and print management. I think it's very interesting that there's maybe a lot of print brokers who call themselves print managers, and maybe there's some print management services providers who actually are just clever brokers rather than doing everything that they should be doing.
Right.
Next, I'd just like to say that I think Jim's given us a great overview of some of the different business models that print management services apply when they're setting up a contractual relationship. But let's be honest, I think some of those can be just as opaque. I've seen some very interesting, shall we say, print management contracts in there. And some print managers are very open and do exactly what they say, and others maybe focus their contracts around some headline products and seek to create more profit margin through other areas which haven't been covered properly in the agreements.
Okay. All right. So
I've got one last thing
I'm sorry, go ahead.
as well, which is just to answer Angela's question, why can't it just be print? Over in the UK, the print management market now is becoming quite a crowded space. There's a lot of competition out there. And I think that a lot of print management companies, or a lot of their clients, have had everything done to them that they can in terms of making print a more efficient process. And if the print management companies are going to continue to expand and to increase their profit margins and to justify working with those clients, they have to move into other spaces, and that's what they're doing.
Okay, and
Absolutely.
I completely respect that, and I completely understand that. But for the purposes of this conversation, let's keep it focused on the print aspect of it and understand that the smart print management services are adding value by moving into other areas. Is that fair?
Fair enough.
That's fine by me.
Okay. All right. Okay, so with that being said, what are some of the advantages to using a print management service for the purchase of print? Matthew.
Okay, so there's a lot of good reasons why companies should consider print management. So although I'm critical of some print management companies, that doesn't mean I'm critical of print management at all if it's done correctly. For a start, a company can take out a huge chunk of purchasing overheads by subcontracting that or asking those staff to move over to the print management company. Secondly, a print management company should be able to get better solutions and more volume related pricing because they have a bigger purchasing spend with a wider supply base. They should be able to purchase more intelligently. They don't always do it, but they should be able to do that. And thirdly, many clients now have very general procurement departments, and the person who's buying print could have been brought up buying potatoes or widgets or whatever it is, and they don't know anything about print. And a good print management service provider should be able to give good knowledge of print that the client no longer has. So those are kind of three of the main reasons I'd see to move over to a print management company.
Okay, just to address a couple of things you said. When you said reduce the internal spend, you are basically saying get rid of the buyers.
Yes. Or at the very least, get rid of the purchasing admin team.
Okay, so
You
people who are
could have a
buying,
bit where you have a senior procurement person or a purchasing person there, but the people who've been writing out the orders, who maybe don't have that same knowledge of print, they're the people who are probably most at risk in that sort of arrangement.
okay, and
And it's a big chunk of overheads that these companies have for a non-core purchasing spend.
I understand that. I've worked in-house, for example, at Redken in their corporation, in their procurement department, procuring print. So, but in this situation, based upon what you just said, you're fine if I leave and a print management service takes over, but that's another thing. So the other thing,
Not quite what I said. I said that
well, you kind of said get rid of
on the company's budget line.
Okay, and then you said and by the way, we're getting lots of comments. By the way, what is exactly your experience with these people who are being let go to then get a job in the management service that is now servicing that company? Do you know people that that's actually happened to?
So in the UK, I think our employment laws are different to the US. And if a person loses their job, it has to be because it's been outsourced. The outsourcing company has to take that person on under the same terms and conditions.
Really?
So those people would automatically be moved over to the print management service, the print management company. Whether they keep their jobs or whether they're then made redundant is a matter for discussion at that point.
Okay, so Jim, let's let you comment, and I'm going to get to some of the comments / questions in the queue here.
I had a feeling that subject would bring up a bit of a storm of controversy. I agree with what Matthew said, the benefits of working with a print management company. A lot of what we're talking about now are large enterprise engagements, but this is starting to work its way down into smaller organizations, and there's a very good reason why. People like us who have been doing this for 30 years and know the business inside and out are becoming scarcer and scarcer. In addition to that, marketing has changed dramatically over the last 15, 20 years. All of the channels on the digital side didn't exist 20 years ago. Companies could afford to have a procurement department, a print procurement department in-house. Today, I don't know about that, because you also have a variety of other communications channels out there that need to be serviced. Add into that how complicated print has become. Print has never been a simple industry, but over the past 15, 20 years, the new technologies that have been introduced, digital printing, for example, print is a highly complicated item that requires expertise to source. And frankly, we're becoming scarcer and scarcer. Hence, the centralization of print purchasing within organizations such as print management companies give companies the option, the opportunity to have senior level talent working on their materials without having to pay senior level pricing. And I believe we're going to see more of that trend moving forward, where print management will be moving down. My experience on the agency side, a lot of clients, they don't have the bandwidth to purchase in-house. They hand the work over to the agency, and a lot of agencies will put it off to a coordinator, somebody who doesn't have any clue as to how to purchase correctly. I've seen it firsthand many times. Print management is a way for not only organizations, but even agencies, to get more expertise in-house without having to have a butt in every seat.
I'm sorry, I'm just laughing at some of these comments. Yeah.
Can I jump in here, Jim? Because I'm going to ask you, do you think that that's always the case? Because one of the issues that I have with print management is the fact that for many of the larger companies, they may be struggling to find the right purchasing talent or the right print knowledge talent still around, and they're using low-level purchasers who don't have the knowledge that they should have.
Yes, I think you're right, especially on the enterprise level and with the larger companies. They don't want to pay what needs to be paid to bring in upper-level talent in some cases. But the inner workings may be the biggest print management company in the world, but they are not the only one. There are many, many smaller print management companies that have been started by people like us who have the experience of being on the client side, working across that desk.
I mean, I have to say that I have used a print management service as the director of production in an advertising agency because we just were overloaded. It wasn't enough work for a freelancer, but it was enough to just give it to somebody who I actually had worked with before, and she started a print management company, and it was amazing to work with. It was just a bunch of real production people who would just come in, get the specs, go out, and manage the job like a print production manager, showing us samples. We were having some problems with embossing, and we need to go to the copper dyes and this other thing, and she managed it, and it was fantastic. But to say get rid of me and just use that, I don't get that. But I have to say I do see the value on the corporate side sometimes, because you don't want the person buying staples also buying print. That's when people
Absolutely.
stop using print, because their stuff looks like crap, quite frankly. And it's where print management services in the broader definition, Jim, that you mentioned, can add a ton of value, because they're up on the latest technologies and everything else, and it can really help people with marketing. So I do understand that. I just don't at all agree with the job replacement thing. I like to quickly just read some of these comments and or questions, and I know we're going to have to move it along a little. It's a very passionate topic, obviously. Herman Fisher said, do print management companies have in-house capabilities? Are those brokerage relationships? I think quickly we know that, there are what I refer to as the outsourcing of print management services and I call them the infiltrators, the ones that put a person in a company and they're sitting in that company managing that company's work, but they do not work for that company. They work for the print management service. So I don't know if that's a brokerage relationship at that point. Is that buyer actually sourcing work with the best interest of the client in mind or the best interest of the company that they're working for with a pool of vendors that only that company works for? That's kind of like what my problem with this whole thing is.
Bear in mind that there's a couple of print management companies over here that also have their own plant that they want to use as well. So
isn't that convenient?
Try to work through that.
Okay, so that's going to pretty much stroke me out, so let's just skip over that for a second.
You're here too, Deborah, by the way.
You too? That strokes you out too?
No, Standard Register has Workflow One, I believe is the name of it. That's their own print management business. Printers are getting involved in this as well. It's not just coming from the procurement side.
Mark DeLuca said, perhaps to be expanded to indicate communications as well as print to take advantage of social media applications to complement and accompany print. So that pretty much fits into your broader definition, John. Ferko, my friend from, I think that's my Hungarian brother from another mother, actually. What can corporate in-house marketing print buyers do to prevent this corrosive scope creep? Not only is print under attack, marketing design are also under attack. When a very large printing marketing service provider will put one of the employees in your facility at no charge to your company, that is very hard to combat. And the rebate check to the corporation for the management company is also very hard to combat. Printed brand consistency suffers, and all procurement can focus on the savings rebate, not the print quality and brand consistency. So that kind of plays into where does the person sitting in that company, where does their loyalty lie? And I don't have an answer to that. I mean, Jim, do you place people in companies, or you're completely outsourcing at this point?
We're too small. We're too small for that right now.
Okay.
But that would be an intent moving forward.
To become an infiltrator. I call it an infiltrator. You probably have a nicer word for it.
Well, I wouldn't call it necessarily an infiltrator. And I also think that that model will probably change a bit over time as communications technologies improve. You don't maybe need to have somebody on site 24/7 or throughout a 40-hour work week. And these teams can also be pooled. So
okay,
things are changing in this space as well.
Okay, there's a zillion comments here, and I'd really like to get. I don't care if we don't get to any other questions. I'd rather hear from the people. Matthew, hold on.
Okay.
Steve Weprin, I guess. I'm sorry, Steve, if I just bastardized your name. Matthew, explain to me, a print buyer, how I can convince myself that it is in my best interest to suggest to my company that I lose my job. Have fun with that.
Okay, typically the print management companies will come in and they will pitch to the higher level of management. So they'll be typically looking at senior management, typically finance director level, to put their services over. It may be that as the scope of the contract is being discussed, then the company or the client to the print management company decides to keep some knowledge in-house. But no print buyer, I think, is going to come and say to a print management company, outsource me, unless they're looking to get a good retirement or a good deal to get out of that company.
Okay.
Can I jump in for a second?
Sure.
I think that it's also a challenge to print buyers to up your game a bit as well. Yes, print management companies are approaching firms up at the C level. They're speaking with finance. They're speaking with people at the higher levels of the company, and they're identifying opportunities for savings. Why can't print buyers internally start to focus the same way and do the same thing? Take on that attitude. How can we improve ROI in our department now? Are there technical solutions that we can implement? There's no reason why an internal print department can't be structured to be more efficient and be more lean. And I can understand how people become defensive about this, but it's also an opportunity to look at ways of improving your department so that
that you don't get outsourced?
When a print management company comes, you can have a defense in place against it. Okay? That's one of the reasons that print management companies are successful, is
I
because
agree with you.
these opportunities exist.
I would happen to agree. I would have to agree with you that there is if a door is left open, somebody is going to step in it. So
That's right.
I will have to give you that there is responsibility on the buyers too to make sure that they are everything you just said. I would have to bite my tongue and agree with you on that.
I agree with Jim on that, but I'd add, in fairness to the buyers, it can be difficult for them to justify the spend on workflow systems that print management companies may bring with them.
Okay, that's a very good point. And actually, eLink Solutions has a great procurement system that everybody should check out if you're interested in it. That's how we kind of got into this space together. Candy Corbett, cool name, Candy Corbett. She's making a comment that print buying in the enterprise depends upon knowledge and the base of the employees buying print, which we kind of touched upon that before. They have a large enterprise with 4 preferred suppliers under enterprise sourcing, and they did review print management systems and decided it was not the right model for them. So yay, Candy. Andy, I'll get back to your question in a second. Ray Kunzman, I should stop saying people's names, says he agrees that agencies don't know how to agents agree that agencies don't know how to properly purchase print, but even with that being true, they are still costing their clients billable hours while speccing premium and #1 sheets that cost clients more than they need to spend. Well, coming from an advertising agency, I would have to say that that's true. We always want to do the award-winning piece. That's our first thing that we're going to pitch. We're always going to have it there. We're always going to spec it out. You know, whenever I was in a production meeting, we would always say, okay, give the client show the client what they asked for, show them our solution to it, and then show them the dream thing. And you never know. I mean, you may even get to use Scodex if you do it. So it's worth it. Do you have any comments about that? I think that might go back to you if they make stuff like that opens the door for print management. Would you agree?
I would say so. In my experience, when I was selling print, a lot of times they would spec out a sheet a premium sheet that really would look no different than the house sheet, and it would add 1/3 to the cost of the job. When you mention that to the client, they felt that that by speccing out that particular brand, that it leveled out the playing field because everybody's quoting the same thing. But everybody's quoting a job that's probably 1/3 higher than it should have been. So yeah, it's a good comment.
Okay, this is actually a great statement / question from Terry Masagni. I'm sorry, Terry, who asked, do you really need a print management service if you're using the right print shop? I think that's brilliant. how much of this falls on the printer, the relationship between the printers and the buyers who are already in place before it gets outsourced? Anybody?
Well, I'd like to jump in again. Not every printer has every piece of equipment. You can use a great printer, but the dirty little secret in the printing industry, and it's been going on for years, is printers job work to each other all the time. It happens all the time. If you don't have an envelope press, you send it over to an envelope shop. If you don't have a web, you send it over to a web. This is not just brokers that do it. Printers themselves do it. So you're exposing yourself to additional markups by doing that, by not having direct relationships with the vendors. Now, a print management service oftentimes just works on a retainer. So the manufacturers themselves direct bill back to the client. There's no additional markups on the work. So yes, you can have a great printer, but that printer is not going to be able to do everything for you. And in all likelihood, they'll be passing a lot of your work around. In fact, I knew one agency sent everything over to a Sir Speedy. Everything.
Okay, I'm glad I put my coffee down before I heard that, because it would have been all over the screen. Somebody yesterday was telling me, that made a comment on LinkedIn that really annoyed me to no end, and they said that printers cannot compete with like the Vista Prints of the world, so they're taking in the orders, sending them to Vista Print, but upselling it back to the client. And I, challenged them. I said, you tell me the printers that are doing that right now, because I'd like to know. But I never heard back. But that's sort of like what we're saying here. Mark from, I'm pretty sure you're from AccuZip, Mark, our friends at AccuZip. The infiltrators work for the people who sign their checks and rate their performance. To think anything other than that is naive. They will always do what is best for their company while fulfilling the agreements in place to the letter and not beyond. You mentioned creep, and that is how their business grows. As they recognize opportunity, they share it with the company, not yours, and that will increase their fees. I agree 100% with that. Any comments regarding that?
I think it depends on the quality of the person put in at the company. And this is kind of the flip side to what Jim was saying in the previous response, that I agree that if you've got the right person in there, as a print management company, if you're employing a person with the right knowledge, that's exactly what they will do. That's their job. And you never know, it might actually help the client company as well, because they may spot opportunities that haven't been spotted at that company beforehand. However, I'd also argue that we come back to the fact that there is a lack of print buying talent out there, that personally I don't see many print management companies actually investing to create that talent, and therefore sometimes you get to the point where there are more admin people rather than print experts in the print management company's place. And a story just to illustrate this was, I was talking to a print company the other day, and they do work for a print management company. And this print management company actually put them in front of their own clients, which is a brave thing to do. But this printer, because they've got more knowledge, because they've got the account handling skills, they're actually growing print at that client, showing how it can be done. And that's what the print management company should be doing, but actually it's the printer who's doing it.
Yes, if only I had a magic wand and could keep them in a certain pen of people that they could go after, instead of putting their little feet in every door that's out there to try to get rid of people like me. I mean, I take offense to it, though I also completely understand, because like we said in the beginning, we've lost that whole, I mean, when I started out, I was a junior traffic person. There was a department of 10 people that taught me everything they knew along the way, especially if they wanted to leave at 5 o'clock, they had to dump it on me. So the next thing I know, that's kind of how I learned everything. You give it to the low man on the totem pole, and they stand there at night waiting for the disc, or what, you used to have to wait for discs and send them in FedEx, but to get them to the printer. But that's it. And that's how I started to learn how to release ads. And I mean, it just grew from that, and that's not really there anymore. Still some more comments, and then maybe we can move on. Jim, this is for you. This is from Angela Bond again. And she's actually made a lot of great comments here, but they're kind of more like statements, so I'm just going to read this one and then we can move on. But thank you, Angela. Sure. I do appreciate your participation. Jim, please realize that in a corporate environment, you are spending the budgets of other teams. We do not own the ROI nor the budget. We can only produce the best brand, right print at the time and budget allows. So that was just a comment.
Okay.
Okay. Jessica Rave says that she's never seen any situation where a printer hasn't ended up giving a lower price once competitive bidding is introduced. And we're going to get to those printer questions in a second. Kirk Madden says, how has high-quality digital print on demand as a distributed model affected print buying behavior? I'm not sure if that's relevant to this conversation at the moment, but we can actually, why don't we start that discussion in the LinkedIn group, and we can elaborate it more there. And I'd like to invite Matthew and Jim to participate in that with me, so we can not ignore that. And the last thing is and then we'll move on to another question. Herman Fisher says, print shops have to survive. Adding value by offering print management service is essential. The market is heading in this direction. Brand managers at companies can't manage procurement. The gap is making it difficult not to expand services. You want to comment on that, you guys?
I'd agree with it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very easy to go into a company first time round and knock 30% off their print spend. Typically, I quite often do that with some of my clients, because I go in, I look at what they're buying, I look at what they're specifying, and typically these are people who don't have professional print buyers anymore. So it's easy for me to make some small changes to their specifications, to look at some of their processes, and to look at the types of suppliers that they're using and make a big change very quickly for them. And if I'm doing that, I don't particularly have to go out to lots and lots of competitive bidding. It's about the process that hasn't been there being put into place. So I can make a big change very quickly with some companies. But if you're going to keep on doing that year after year to try and keep that contract, then you have to move into competitive bidding, and then you have to move to other services, because there's only so much improvement that can be done before everything's optimized.
There's not much I can add to that. I think you nailed it, Matthew. You nailed it. The initial gains from a white space opportunity, you could easily get 20 to 30% savings initially. Those gains cannot be achieved moving forward, though. After the procurement has been optimized, you may be able to wring a little bit extra out of it. But to some of the points made here earlier, you get to a point where you start wringing quality out of the process, and once that happens, then I think we've crossed a line. You always must maintain a certain level of quality and brand stewardship for the client.
Okay, so Michael Langret actually has a comment for me, which is he thinks I'm incorrectly assuming that print management systems mean jobs need to be eliminated. On the contrary, many of his clients love their services because they complement and make their marketing efforts more effective, in all caps, servicing their internal clients and colleagues. Michael, I definitely do agree with that. All the advantages that you've listed there are 100% true. I've mentioned before, I have worked with print management service in that capacity. My issue lies with the infiltrators and the people whose only interest is to get rid of the professional buyers and get their people in there to take over the buying. And I'm not calling it procurement, because it's not procurement. It's print buying. It's understanding paper. It's understanding printing. It's understanding what the creatives, an effect, a varnish effect. It's understanding what PMS colors will look good and what won't. It's understanding, timing and everything else that a professional print buyer does. And, it probably is more along, it touches my nerve when it comes to agency and marketing, because I consider that creative, and less so when it comes to procurement, because some of the time those people don't have any print knowledge at all, or they are just executing the specs from the creatives and they don't have any input in it. At that point, those are usually, when you hear printers say buyers only buy on price, those are those people usually, because quite frankly, that is their job. Scott Rempe says, a powerful way to prevent this type of takeover is to have semi-annual reviews that focus on the client's business direction and ask tough questions like, what would it take for me to lose your business? That is a tough question. Okay. In the relation, this is the last question, and then you're welcome, Michael. This is the last question, and then I want to get to this printer's question. I think that's very important. And just so you know, because we have had so much audience participation, and that thrills me to death, I will post all these questions in my LinkedIn group, and we can carry on this conversation. But Mark from Accusip again says, in the relationship between print management service provider and the client, their client, what level of savings can be expected each year? Is it sustainable, or do the smart clients learn the vendors and services available and take the process back in-house at some point? I like the anti-infiltrator. You let an infiltrator in, learn from them, and then kick them out. I like that. I'm going to do that. I like that, Mark. Jim, why don't you take that one?
Well, obviously, the initial gains are not going to be sustainable over a period of time. What you would typically do is perform a benchmark analysis at the beginning, where you identify, say, number 20, 25% savings. That benchmark then would inform compensation if you're working on a gain share basis over a course of the contract, whether it be 3-5 year period. But you're not going to get another 30% savings after that period, because you have already wrung out a lot of the efficiencies out of the system itself. So at the end of that point, would the client be able to move on and then self-direct? That's a good question. I have not had experience with that. Matthew, maybe you have.
Well, Matthew, I'm sorry, Matthew. Let's also tie this into the question on the screen, which is, will printers be affected by a rise in print management services? Because I think this ties into what I hope you're going to go for your answer now, because we've had this discussion before.
It was slightly different, but I am certainly seeing in the UK some companies have had print management in there. They found it is no longer working for them, and they're bringing back their own procurement in-house instead. It's not for everyone, but I've certainly seen that happening. And it's not about necessarily learning the processes. Sometimes it's dissatisfaction with the service, feeling out of control with that, with what may be a big spend for that company. Moving on to, will printers be affected by a rise in print management services? The quick answer to that is yes. I see that there's 3 types of printers, and they're pretty much like the 3 types of supermarkets. You have the really low-cost printers who have focused on ultra-efficient production, and they're the people who can meet the price demands that print management companies are coming in on round 2, because we've all talked about how the price reductions or the cost reductions are not sustainable. That isn't stopping some print management companies from coming in and promising crazy savings and then trying to work out how to do it. And they're putting some of that demand, a lot of that demand, on the supply chain. So if you're an ultra-efficient, low-cost producer, you're in a good position to be able to fulfill those requirements, possibly lose some overhead because you don't require a sales team anymore. There are opportunities for you there, but only if you really can do that ultra-low-cost production. A lot of people think they're in that situation when they're not. Then at the other end of the scale, we have people offering very specialized services which command premium prices, often go straight to the end user. Even if they are working with a print management company, they're still commanding a premium price. And they're going to have a great position in the world of print going forward. And in the middle, we've kind of got the traditional printer who's been used to churning out work that's good quality work, but they're not especially efficient, they haven't got a particular market niche, and they're the people who are going to get squeezed. Jim, I don't know how you feel about that.
I agree. I think you're absolutely right. You're right. The efficient shops will do well. The specialty shops will do well. The general commercial printer in the middle is going to get hammered. What I would suggest, if you happen to find yourself in that middle position, is to look at the business that you have right now. The Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, applies to everything. And typically, you will have some areas that you're more efficient in and than others, other areas that are more profitable for you. Then focus in there and focus on becoming an efficient in those market niches, in those verticals that you've traditionally done very well in, and perhaps bring yourself to the position of being able to be efficient in this new marketplace.
Matthew, I have a question. I thought I heard you say something that printers won't need sales forces anymore.
There are some printing companies in the UK that have decided that their business model lies with servicing the print management companies, and therefore they don't need a sales force. A print management company goes out and sells on their behalf effectively and places
a print broker. How is that not a print broker?
Well, effectively, the print management company, they've got enough business coming in from the print management companies to fill their presses. So the print management company isn't specifically selling that specific company, that specific printing company.
Okay.
So it's a brave move, because you could suddenly find that unless you've got a good spread of print management companies, if you've got one contract, that if you're 50% working for one print management company, if you're falling out, the relationship stops working for any reason, then suddenly you could have lost 50% of your business. So it's a brave move, but there are companies out there who are making that work.
So how is how is this not creating a monopoly or price fixing? If you get a bunch of print management companies using the same printers who don't even need to have salespeople anymore because they're getting all the work. I mean, I don't even understand how you just do all the work at one printer. First of all, I mean, in the corporate world, you certainly can't do that. I mean, I don't even, you just kind of freak me out a little. I'm just going to move on because I don't understand what
okay.
you guys
You still have a wide supplier base, but some of your suppliers are choosing to work primarily with print management companies rather.
But I'm giving the purchase.
Printer.
I'm paying the print management service. I'm not paying the printer. I might not even know who the printer is. That is a fair assumption, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Not always. Not
Okay.
always. Some print management companies will not pass the cost through there. They'll have the vendor direct bill.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
If
true.
I was ever to use print management service, then I would want to use that one that I knew who the printer was. So I'm glad you said that because I had no idea that that was true. Thank you, Jim. Okay, so we kind of talked about this. We have a couple of minutes left, so let me just see this. Let's end on this question, okay? So, and then again, my LinkedIn group is called Print Production Professionals, and we will carry on this conversation there. And I'm sorry that we're running out of time, but heated Fight Club. What do you want? So, in general, are print services good for the print and marketing industry? I'm just going to answer first, and then I'll let you guys go. I'm going to have to say yes, believe it or not, because I think that any kind of system that keeps print in the mix and keeps good print in the mix, and I'm assuming that these are good print management service companies, not ones that are just riding on a trend and trying to infiltrate and get some cash and, you know, glorified brokers, so to speak. And no offense to brokers, but you know what your reputations are. Oh God, probably every broker has just left my LinkedIn group, but you know, that's, fix yourselves, and I don't know what else to say. So in the cases where they are coming in and saying, look, you've been doing direct mail like this forever. Here's a better way of doing it that's proven, you know, customer case studies, return on investments that they have specifically participated in so they can show it from themselves, then yes, I think it's good for the print and marketing industry. Jim?
Yes, I also believe it's good for the print and marketing industry as well, because what it does is it centralizes expertise and it makes it available, more commonly available to others. Now, for instance, a marketing organization can focus on the strategic and can focus on the tactical aspects of what they need to accomplish, allowing a professional to take care of the execution. They are not distracted by the execution. I think also that moving forward this trend is going to continue. Business process outsourcing has been around for a while. It's becoming more and more accepted. And as time goes on, I think that people will start feeling better about outsourcing these services to print management services. From the print standpoint, to Matthew's point earlier, print management companies can bring very low-cost work to print shops that doesn't require a sales force for them to manage. Even if you have your own sales force, perhaps you can allot a portion of your capacity to working with print management companies. So it's the wave of the future, it's the trend, it's the way things are going, and I think overall it is a positive one.
I would just like to reiterate once again, though, that print buyers currently employed have a stake in not having this happen to them, and certainly, you know, do the best you can do at all times. And
this isn't a fit for all companies.
It's very passionate. It's a very passionate subject. I'd like to just get to all these comments, if I can.
Yeah, but can I chime in here?
Yeah,
because
quickly.
We've all been agreeing the whole time. It's supposed to be Print Fight Club, and me and Jim are going,
We're
yeah.
not agreeing. I just alienated.
Absolutely right.
I just alienated every print broker on the planet. Believe me.
In the spirit of Print Fight Club, I'm going to raise my fists here, bare knuckles here, and I'm going to say no, it's not.
Good.
And the reason is it should be good. And I'm saying this is a slightly qualified no, because there are some great print management companies out there who are doing what they should do. There are also a number of print management companies out there who have gone in, they've picked the low-hanging fruit, they've taken the 20 or the 30% off from a company's costs, and now they're wondering how they're going to sustain their business models. And the way that they're doing that is in two ways. They're cost-cutting at their own companies, and they're not investing in the talent that should be there to help themselves grow the business, to sell print and marketing services effectively, and to help their clients. And they're pushing back on the supply chain as well, while still expecting to get a hefty profit margin back from the client. And because there are a growing number of companies that would fit that bill who are not achieving what they set out to on their stall, and often not helping their clients because they have some very opaque agreements where they apparently are showing savings, or they are showing savings on core products, but the way that the non-core spend is being measured allows them to make some pretty hefty profits at that point. I think there's a large part of print management which has fallen into the commodity trap rather than the growing print trap, and while that part of the market is still there, is still expanding, then we can't say that print management is good for the print industry.
Okay, I mean, I agree with half the things you said. I prefaced my response by we're only talking about the good management companies, not the ones who wreck it for everybody else. But, I mean, hackers wreck the internet for everybody, you know, so there's always good and bad things going on here. There's a lot of comments. Are we going to
give Jim the right to reply, considering that I've just...
sure. If you're trying to, Jim, I'm sorry, I didn't notice. I was reading the question. Go ahead.
I'm sorry?
Matthew wants to know if you have something to reply to what he just said.
Well, yeah. I think that when I say that print management is a positive for marketing and printers, I'm talking about the firms that do it right, not the firms that don't do it right. Now, to your point about these firms that are trying to squeeze every last nickel out and finding non-core profits, well, there are more companies coming into this space, and they're going to get knocked out of the box. This is becoming a competitive space now because of the money that's being made, and it's also one of the few growing areas in the business. Do you know that Inner Workings grew 13% last year? They grew their revenues 13% and an 8% margin versus R.R. Donnelley that didn't grow at all and works off of 2% margins. So there's money to be made in this area. And as other firms come in, the weak players, the bad ones, are going to get knocked out of the box.
All right, let me ask this quickly, and I'm sorry, I know we're over, but if you're staying on the webinar, just keep staying. Where are there opportunities for displaced print buyers to join these management firms and manage print? Is that where you're getting your people from, Jim? Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yes, you want talent who already know the business. There are a number of companies now that are out looking for talent. We're becoming a scarce breed.
I mean, that's true. I mean, go ahead, Matthew.
My experience in the UK now is that there isn't enough talent there, and that there are print management companies with large teams of inexperienced buyers. I heard it just in the last week from 2 different companies going, they're getting in quote requests from print management companies that make absolutely no sense. And they ring up, and either they're not allowed to ring up, they just have to quote even though it's a bonkers specification, or they ring up and the buyer there doesn't know what they're talking about. Now that certainly doesn't apply to all print management companies, but I would suggest that as it grows in the US, you're going to come up against that same problem, and that there will be a rise of buyers that are not doing what they should for the print management company or their client or the print industry.
Okay, so as long as I have your little face up there, do you have any final thoughts, or was that your final thought? Or, I mean, this is certainly how everyone can get in touch with you. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
The theory of print management, I think, is great, and I think there are some companies out there who are doing it very well, and there are opportunities for printing companies to do their own print management as well. So I don't think that print management should be seen as a bad thing. If you can't beat some of those companies doing what they're doing, take that, if you're a printing shop, take that to some of your clients and offer those services, because the rise of print management has happened because the printing industry, both the buyers and the printing companies, have not always risen to that challenge and created that solution. So there was a space for them to come up for print management companies to come in.
Okay, and thank you so much for joining us. And this is every way that you can get in touch with Matthew Parker. And Matthew and I also do a dueling blog series every month called UK versus USA, and that's actually how we ended up having a huge brawl with each other and Jim in my LinkedIn group, which is kind of how this came about. And we were talking about, should printers talk about ROI? I mean, it was a knockdown, drag-out fight that went through printing impressions. I mean, it was everywhere. It was crazy, but it's always fun. Thank you, Matthew. Jim?
Thank you.
Final thoughts?
It is fun. It is fun. I'd encourage anybody out there who is not involved in the LinkedIn group to join, because we not only have fun, but we also learn a lot from each other as well. And it really has been a tremendous experience getting to know Deborah and Matthew online. What I would just say is that I think in our business, people yearn for a return to the old status quo. The old status quo, the golden days back before the year 2000, and that's not going to happen. It's done. It's done. The world has moved on from then. We need to adapt. We need to move forward. Outsourcing is going to continue, and it's going to continue to grow. We need to learn how to work within that model so that we can grow along with it. Participating in groups like Deborah's group is one good way to do it, and I would be glad to share my thoughts with anybody. If you'd like to reach out, I'm an open networker on LinkedIn. Please feel free to reach out and connect, and I look forward to continuing the dialogue with everyone.
Thanks, Jim. And like I said, we will take it to the LinkedIn group, so I hope that, I know you'll join us. You can't keep you from commenting unless I block you, so. And so my final thought is that I don't subscribe to the victim mentality. If you are in a situation where you're purchasing print on whatever level it is and you smell the winds of change, do something about it. Reach out to someone like Jim and say, hey, this is the city I'm in and this is the situation, and, can I help in any way? Find your own small firms to become a personal print manager for. Make your own way in this world. Don't wait for someone to give it to you. And Jim, I completely agree with you. It's moving forward. This whole thing is changing. You need to adapt. You need to evolve. I feel most, scared for, I guess, the younger people coming up now who don't have that mentorship that I spoke of before that I had when I first started, and don't have the opportunity to learn. Technically from people like me now at this point, and I feel very protective, especially when the students and the younger people ask questions in the group, that they are heard, because they need help. If we don't help them, there is no future of print buying. The other thing I just would like to say is, every Wednesday at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, I host Print Chat on Twitter with my fabulous co-conspirator and group moderator, Sandy Hubbard, and I encourage you all to join us. It's kind of like a print fight club, except it's 140 characters or less. But if you go to the website, Print Media Center or printchat.printmediacenter.com, all the information is there, and I do hope that you join us. The last thing is thank you so much for everyone for joining us and for staying on over time. Apologies for that. To find out about upcoming print fight clubs, and there will be many more of these, not necessarily on this topic, but we might have to do a go through the questions that we missed. Please go to webinars.printmediacenter.com or just go to my website, click on webinars. And if you're interested in participating in a fight club, or you have a topic that you want to bring up, or you want to sponsor one, like our fabulous friends at eLink Solutions, please send me an email, Deborah@printmediacenter.com. And again, thanks everybody for participating.